Hello and welcome to your Recipe for Financial Success with me, Emma, and my colleagues Becky and Julie.
In each episode, we'll be bringing you a list of ingredients to help you cook up a storm and master methods to finesse your finances. We'll be helping you expand your repertoire and hopefully teach you a few new skills along the way.
So, clear the counters and get your mixing bowls ready for today's recipe. Let's get started.
Today I have with me Leanne Gunns from Excel Accountancy Norwich. So she's our guest expert baker today. It's lovely to have you with us, Leanne.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. This is really fun.
Have you ever recorded a podcast before?
No, and one about with a cake theme is obviously even better because I love cake, so I'm quite happy.
Well, we're going to talk about your favourite cake later on, so don't you worry.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Yeah, it has to be done.
It does. I'm not going to lie. Went through to my mum earlier and said, it's 11's, isn't it? Can we have some cake? So,
yeah, I think cake is, got to be done.
Definitely. And the recipe and all the ingredients just relates to so many different things. So not only what we do in financial advice, but also what you do.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, there's lots of pieces to a jigsaw, really, isn't it? Or like you say, ingredients to a cake in both industries. And I think it comes across, it's quite a good idea to think about it that way, really, because to have financial success in any business, there's lots of things to keep in mind. It's not always just the obvious of you make a sale, some money comes in, you spend some stuff on expenses, and then you're left with a bit of profit. There's much more to it than that, I think.
Really? I thought that was it. I'm going wrong somewhere.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Well, so it's really easy to assume that you literally just sell some stuff, make some profit. But the biggest mistake I would say people make when they're starting out in business in particular is, for one, not accounting for their time, almost like their time is free, especially when they start a new business.
Mm-hmm.
So their profit tends to relate to this, really. And to be honest, if you are charging your time out for free, even if you make a profit, it's not really a true profit, because you could have made money doing another job somewhere else, and it would have been a lot easier and a lot less stressful for you. So the first thing I generally teach people when they come into my world is, are you actually charging for your services? Are you actually charging for your time? And you will find many new business owners do not. So they're thinking, right, okay, I'm making a profit, I'm selling something for £50, it cost me £10. Actually, no. They haven't taken into consideration the fact that it's they've spent 4 hours doing something else, or there's all time constraints into absolutely everything. And it's so important to remember that.
Really good gem of information there to start with, Leanne. What got you into being an accountant, though? How did you end up where you are? What's your kind of story?
That is, so I never in a million years grew up thinking I wanted to be an accountant. I think accountants have a really bad reputation for being a bit dull and a bit boring and all that sort of thing. So it certainly wasn't what I'd dreamt of being as a child as such. But I started in the world of accountancy not long after leaving school by working in my parents' business. They needed help with their books and things like that. So I just sort of fell into it, really, and then went from there. I started getting the qualifications, and obviously it's quite a good job to be in if you're like a mum, because when my son was born, I could work part-time, flexible hours, things like that. And then I started up my own business to give me true flexibility over what I was doing. Especially my son's got a disability, so it makes my life a lot easier to be able to come and go as I please, go to appointments whenever I need to. And it just became, something that I got into, and it's sort of grown and grown from there, really. I'd say over the last year, it's grown hugely. For me, lockdown and COVID and everything else sort of showed a lot of business owners where they were managing by themselves, I think, that actually they probably did need a bit more support and a bit more help to make sure they were making the most out of their business that they could do.
Right. So it's one of those, for a lot of people, COVID has had a negative impact and caused problems, but for you, actually it's
the exact opposite for me, I would say. I think COVID showed everybody how vulnerable the state of things actually are, and they realised that although they could probably wing it under really good financial circumstances, suddenly they've got everyone's world basically was turned upside down. And a lot of my existing clients were caterers linked to the wedding industry. I had lots and lots of chefs, things like that worked with me, cafes, restaurants, and obviously overnight their entire business plan had to change. So I think that brought in a hell of a lot more clients than I could have imagined. I think people really realized that actually in order to grow their business, they needed proper help and support. And I think it's a big misconception of people that accountants are really expensive, so they're not really worth getting one unless you really have to. But actually, a good accountant will give you advice and save you money in the long run. So we do sort of pay for ourselves, as cliche as that is, again. But if you save a load of money in tax and you've paid an accountant a bit of that saving, then it's all win-win for everybody, really, isn't it?
Definitely.
So
And the money hasn't gone to the tax man, which nobody wants them to have.
nobody wants that, do they? So yeah, I think we'd all rather support other businesses than just hand over money willy-nilly. Although I'm sure there is a place for some taxation, but that's a whole nother argument.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
So, talking about today, we're looking at starting up new businesses and all the different types of things to think about. You're kind of the perfect person to do that. So not only being an accountant, but having been through that process yourself and
Yeah.
help lots of other people to do it too.
Yeah, so I get asked the same questions over and over again from people starting new businesses. And they are really, the first one I get asked, I would say, is, do I need a business bank account? Like this, I'm asked this all the time. And technically, if you're setting up as a sole trader, then no, you don't have to have one, but you'd be very silly to not have any separate bank account, because it makes accounting and your tax returns and everything else really messy. So number one piece of advice, get a separate bank account. There's also a allowance, which allows you to trade up to £1,000. So this means like receive up to £1,000. It's not necessarily a profit, but you can make total sales of up to £1,000 before you pay, before you need to register with HMRC and start declaring your earnings. So that's really good to think about if you're doing like a business on the side, or you're just starting out, or it's like a hobby business. Then you can actually, wait to register your business until you've actually taken £1,000. So that's quite good. The other thing that I get asked a lot is, how do you actually register a business? And this is really, really easy. If you're going to be a sole trader, you literally go online and sign up with the government gateway website for a UTR, which is a tax reference, and then you're registered. But there's several different types of like business setup, and a lot of people rush straight into assuming they're going to need a limited company when they first start out. So a limited company is like a separate financial entity to yourself. When you're a sole trader, your business and you are one and the same. The money is just one and the same. There's no distinction between your business and you. Whereas as a limited company, the business sits to one side, and that includes all of its assets, all of the money in the bank, everything like that. And then you are separate. So what that means is there's a separation of liability. So if something went wrong in your business, unless you've signed some sort of personal guarantee, you're not personally liable for it. Whereas with a sole trader, because there's no differentiation between you and your business, you are. The difference is that with a limited company, you pay corporation tax. So people get unstuck with this a lot. They rush straight in with a new business, register as a limited company, and then actually get stung on the tax, because they pay corporation tax on all of the profits in the business, and then they pay personal tax on the money they withdraw. So before you do any of this, top tip here, speak to an accountant and get a tax calculation done based on what you're projecting to earn, and see if it's worthwhile staying as a sole trader for a lot longer. Because I see so many people come to me, they've registered as a limited company, and now they've not taken very much money. They might have taken £3,000 or £4,000 in a year, but they're going to have to still pay corporation tax on that, those profits. Whereas if they were a sole trader, they wouldn't have had to pay a penny. So that's something really important to keep in mind when you're starting out, really. Other top tips that I can give are that you really need to plan everything. Like, it's no good really jumping into it with both feet. You need to just take a step back, work out what you need to start, what money you need to start up your business, how you're going to market it, whether you need a business plan. Like, formal business plans are a bit of a thing of the past, but even having an idea of the strategy behind your business is so important. Like, working out what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, how you're going to market it, all of those sorts of things.
That's really interesting. Because that was one of the questions I was actually going to ask you about limited company. Should you just go for it and do it? Well, you've answered that one straight away. And I think you're right. So many people just assume that you do that. I think it's probably because when you're kind of a sole trader, how do you have a business name, but actually it's still you're trading as yourself? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you do have like a trading name still, so you can still call yourself whatever business. There's also a big misconception that if you're a sole trader, you can't employ staff, which you can. You can still have a payroll running as a sole trader. and there's still lots of things you can do. The only difference is if your profits are lower, and generally, obviously this varies greatly from person to person, depending on your personal circumstances. But if you have no other income and you're like of normal working age, things like that, generally it's like the late 30,000 in profit that you start to get more efficient to move over to a limited company. So if you're not earning anywhere near that, like if your business has just taken 10,000 this year, if you're a new business, it may very well be that you're better off just to stay as a sole trader, and look at your other options. Like, for example, you can still sign up for payroll, you can still trade under a trading name. All of these things can still be done as a sole trader.
Very good. So can you as a sole trader be VAT registered as well, or?
Yes, yeah, you can. Basically anything like that still applies. It's all still, you're still an official business as such as a sole trader. And I think this is where people think it looks more official to be a limited company. But I would say 9 times out of 10 people won't notice, like especially your clients, depending on who you're dealing with, they're not really going to notice much difference. It doesn't make you look any more official to have a limited company than it does to be a sole trader. It's just whether or not it's going to be the right setup for you. So obviously that's a bit of blanket advice and everybody needs to look at their own circumstances, but it's just really be aware when you're starting out that you don't want to get caught in this trap of having to pay corporation tax, which is 19% at the moment on all of the business profits. And then whatever you withdraw personally, you're then paying tax again. So it can end up getting really expensive, especially if you've got a lower profit business.
Really good, thank you. So as an accountant, if I came to you and said, look, Leanne, I've started up this business, I'm making cakes, got to do that as a recipe for financial success. I'm starting making cakes and I'm selling them. I'm buying my products from here and this is how much things are costing me. What would you say to me to do next? So I'm completely clueless about starting this business. What do you tell me to do?
I would say the first thing is, how are you keeping your records? Because you can't really improve what you're doing, build on your profit, make sure you're keeping an eye on your costs if you don't have accurate records. So it's a really good place to start. So the first thing I would advise you to do, if you can't, like if you're not a fan of software or anything like that, is to get a really good spreadsheet set up where you're listing out all your costs and categories and you've got your income coming in. I would also look, this is a more non-traditional accountancy view, really, the way I take things, but I would really start to make sure you know exactly what each one of your products is costing. And by that, I mean, not only, like, for example, the ingredients that were going in your cake, but also the cost of the time it takes to make it, the electricity you're using when you're cooking it, all these things, like for even the time you spend emailing a client deciding whether or not they want chocolate icing on their cake or whether they want a vanilla sponge or whatever it might be. There's all these things in business that people don't take into consideration. And you simply cannot price for profit or price your goods or price anything correctly if you don't know what it's costing you. So don't forget to include all the things that people forget about, like the household costs if you're working from home, if you've got premises, the premise costs, your time spent advertising, marketing, software. If you've got an email account, that's going to cost money. Do you know what I mean? A business email. All of these things are so easy to exclude. It's no good just thinking, oh, I'm going to make a chocolate cake, I'm going to sell it for £40, my ingredients are £10 and I've made £30, because you actually haven't. And even if those are the only costs you declared to HMRC from a business point of view and from a business management point of view, you're not going to get very far. It's the quickest way to become unstuck is to underestimate what things are costing you.
I see. So do you have an absolute pet peeve of things that people come to you with? And
oh my God, so many. Like the worst has got to be, here's my receipts in a box. They're like a year old. I haven't done anything with them. I've just left them in a box under my bed. They're probably a bit grubby and a bit yucky, screwed up. And I'm now going to give you a year's worth of receipts. And no, I don't know what I've spent or what I've taken or anything else, because I've shoved my receipts in a box and not done anything with them. That's got to be number one, because frankly, how would you know if you've even made a profit? You don't even know what you've done, do you? If you've just shoved your receipts in a box and hoped for the best, oh, that is the worst.
Bonus to that, they've put them under the bed in the dark rather than leave them in the sunlight so all the ink disappears.
Oh no, you see, we get those a lot as well. Like there's nothing on them. They're giving receipts and it's like, this is a plain piece of paper because all the ink's gone. Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely, or the ones where they kept them in their pocket for a little while so that they're all a bit screwed up and half the numbers are missing, and then you have to spend ages manually calculating like somebody's, I don't know, 100-item receipt because half the numbers have rubbed off. It's just, yeah, it's painful.
So obviously keeping your records in order is a really important thing. You said
Yes.
about using a spreadsheet. Should you ideally use software to do it? Is that the best way to do things, or does it not make any difference?
It really depends. Like, some people hate software, and I mean absolutely despise it. Some people despise spreadsheets. It really depends on your individual circumstances. I would say if you have lots of small sales and lots of small expenses, then software is the way to go, because it'll take you so long to like list them out individually in a spreadsheet. But if you have a few main sales, like your sales are less often but like higher value, and your expenses are fewer, then you really don't need software, I wouldn't say. You can get a really good handle on what you're doing from spreadsheets, and you don't even have to have Microsoft Office. You can use like Google Sheets and free versions as well. So you don't have to spend that money on software if you don't like really need it. But equally, if you're the sort of person that either won't keep up to date with their accounts, even if they tried, or if you're the sort of person to shove your receipts in a box under the bed and forget about them, I recommend getting software, because you can attach your bank feed to most software now, and then it gives you a much easier place to start, as long as I said at the beginning, you have a separate bank account for your business. Don't try and do it from your personal account, because you'll spend 50 hours there, excluding your Tesco shopping and your cat food and your dog food. Oh yeah, and it'll take you forever. Just open a separate bank account. If you're a sole trader, it doesn't even have to be a business account. It can be a separate personal account. But now there's some really great free business accounts on the market. So just go and get one. It's just not difficult. Just do it.
That's fair enough. Very good. So I know that I've seen a big buzz, Leanne, on Facebook about a group that you've got called Get Set Accounting.
Yes, so Get Set Accounting is a really fun place to be, if I don't say so myself. It's like, I set it up originally because people were almost afraid to contact accountants, because in their mind they're these like people of a certain age wearing a grey pinstripe suit who talk like this, like really boring, and talk like this about tax law.
I am disappointed you haven't got your pinstripe suit on.
I do not have a pinstripe suit on. I do have some bubble shape, like the bubble decoration leggings on though, which is sort of almost as cool. So there's no pinstripe suit, but I do have some funky leggings.
It doesn't matter what you've got on the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. The bottom half of Zoom is perfect. No, I always wear funky leggings regardless of whether I'm on Zoom or what I'm doing. I'm definitely not the grey pinstripe suit sort of person. And I think there's almost a fear that people will be judged because they don't understand what they're doing with accountancy, that sort of thing. So I think it's a real shame really that it's got to this point. So there's now like a new breed of accountants coming through where they're not so focused on talking down to people. They're not so like, I would say, they're more on our level. They're more not like normal people. I say that in inverted commas because what is normal, but I think this new idea of being much more relaxed and much more approachable is actually helpful for business owners, like getting away from the stereotypical idea of the past, where even now though, whenever anyone asks you what you do and you say you're an accountant, you get like this dull, like glazed over look where people roll their eyes and sort of groan a little bit because they think you're going to be like really sensible, really boring, all that sort of stuff. So what I set up Get Set Accounting for was really to show people that we're not all scary. We're not all like gonna be put off if people don't understand things. It's a really safe place for business owners to come and ask for help and advice and support and get free advice, free help from me and other people in the group as well. It's like a really friendly place. Like people come in with random questions about, oh, I'm struggling with this piece of software. Does anybody know how to help? Or what do I do in the VAT circumstances for this? Things like that, where we can just help and point people in the right direction of other resources if they're needed and give a bit of advice, but without all of the scary talking down to them, groaning if they don't understand, and talking in a language that nobody actually has a clue what they're saying. So I'd recommend it if you have a small business and you don't yet have an accountant particularly. It's a really great place to come and hang out and just get the advice and support that you need from all of us in there.
I have seen lots in there as well about people asking like allowances and for all sorts of different things that I never even knew existed.
Yeah,
So it's really good that people are actually asking the question of whether they can use these things.
it's really good as well, because if one person asks that question, the likelihood is that there might be another 100 people in the group that are thinking the same thing but haven't asked. So I really love it when people come in there and ask, because it gives me not only good ideas of what people need help with, which is a big starting point, but it also it might help other people that are reading the comments as well.
So with this group, are you taking it any further? Are you doing anything new and exciting with it as well?
So we do, off the back of the group, I offer lots of training opportunities for business owners. At the moment, we are just about to launch a training course to help people create their own self-assessment tax returns, but doing it properly, like properly by getting all the allowances for tax and everything that they can to try and reduce what they're spending in tax. Also dealing with like people have multiple income streams. So I know a lot of people struggle when it comes to the tax return if they haven't just got their self-employed business. So we're going to be covering so much. The main course that we've done recently in there is the Accelerate Progress to Profit course, which has been teaching business owners how to really turn their business into something much more profitable and make lots more money. And that's been amazing. Like the results that we've had from that have been really, really, really amazing for the people that are taking part. Just teaching people that actually they can charge for their time, they can make a difference, and the profit they've seen coming through as a result, it's almost been a game changer. Like people have been making more money in 1 month than they have the entire time of their business, and things like that, just because they've learned how to properly put in place strategies to manage their business, which I guess a lot of business owners are entrepreneurs. They're passionate people with great ideas. They haven't necessarily come from a corporate background or an accounting background. So you just wouldn't know this stuff unless you've been taught it. How would anybody know? So that is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring all of the like lessons that the big business owners know to the masses and to the people with like solo business owner businesses, or where they've got like a partnership, or people in the early days of business.
Wow, that sounds really good. So basically, all the things that someone doesn't know, that they've just kind of started out, they've got this really good idea, they've turned the hobby into a business, but actually, where do I go from here? That sounds like a really good place for them to start out.
Yeah, so it's a really, really good starting block. And even actually some of the businesses joining in are established business owners who still just don't know this stuff because they've never been in that environment. And it's quite good to be able to, like, I've done a lot of exams and a lot of training. It's really good to be able to put a lot of what I learn into practice and help people in like a larger group environment rather than just one-to-one clients. So it's really great in that point of view.
Fantastic. So if anybody wants to join the group or to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
If you want to get in touch with me, the best way is you can look me up on Facebook. I'm Leanne Gunns, or you can come and join the group over on Facebook, which is Get Set Accounting, and it's advice for small businesses and startups. You can also find me on Instagram at XL Accountancy Norwich, which I will warn you, you will probably see lots of pictures of my dog on there because that's the sort of thing I do, because I'm not very sensible. So yeah, come and join.
You're not the boring accountant.
Exactly. So if you want a different look at an accountancy business, come and have a look at my Instagram stories, because they are, very non-standard.
You're gonna have to come follow you now and see what's going on.
Yeah, you see lots of random stuff on there. It's not certainly not the standard stuff that you'd find from some of the bigger accountancy firms, that's for sure. But yeah, lots of pictures of my dog.
Fantastic. So the question that I need to ask you, that we briefly touched on at the very beginning, was, what's your favorite recipe, Leanne? You must
My
have
favorite recipe. Well, I do not cook. I can bake. I choose not to bake unless it's like somebody asks me to do a birthday cake or something like that. So I would say my favorite cake, which I wouldn't make myself, but I love, is coffee and walnut cake. But if I had to do something myself, I can guarantee it's going to be a little bit outrageous. Like the last cake I made was a Moana birthday cake, which was like this big 3-tier thing with like seashells and waterfalls, and I dyed the cake inside blue, and everybody's hands and everything was all dyed blue because I put too much food coloring in the cake. So yeah, that's something you're more likely to get from me, something a little bit outrageous. But if I went to the shop and bought one, it would definitely be coffee and walnut every time.
Fair enough. I'm surprised, for someone that says they don't really bake and they don't cook, to bake a cake like that sounds pretty
So it sounds a lot better than it was. Don't get me wrong, I was really proud of it, but it is it was by no means a professional cake artistry piece. It was very much a more fun sort of creation. And luckily the recipient didn't mind if it wasn't polished and finished. But yeah, I made an anniversary cake for my parents as well, which was a VW Beetle with like them driving it like made like Herbie, which was really cool. But you don't get very much sensible out of me, unfortunately. So if you're looking for like pretty cupcakes, my cakes are definitely not the place to go. If you're looking for something slightly crazy with way too much icing and food coloring in, then I'm probably,
Nice rainbow cake or something like that then.
Yeah, definitely. If it's got like food coloring and it's jazzy and bright, then I'm there.
Sounds good to me. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Leanne. And I'm sure that we'll be able to record some more episodes in future and touch on some different topics that other people may find useful.
Yeah, thanks ever so much. I've really enjoyed it. And I now want cake.
Off you go, quick, run to the kitchen.
Quick.
And with that, we've completed today's recipe. We hope you have enjoyed following along with us today and cooking yourself one recipe closer to a financially secure future.
If you've enjoyed today's podcast, you can head over to www.recipeforfinancialsuccess.co.uk, where you can find out more information and a full list of ingredients from today's recipe. For more hints, tips and tasters, find us on Facebook at Your Recipe for Financial Success.
If you'd like to get more involved, share your own experiences and learn from a friendly community on a similar journey to you, why not join us in our new Facebook group, The Money Compass, where we will support you to navigate your way to financial success.
Thank you for listening and see you next time.